Hey everyone, this is Professor Triplet. I am a university professor in the area of games, animation, and visual effects. And I got an email that came in today. Somebody was wondering after they had actually quit the visual effects program to go into a different major. They did this major for about a year, I'm assuming, and they're asking if there's any chance they could come back. And I think the concern is that they wanted to graduate on time. So I emailed them back, and the issue is that no one's seen somebody like switch out of the major and then come back while they're in school. Usually, when somebody switches out, they call it a codo where I'm at, and when they codo out, they usually just stay where they're at. I've never seen somebody codo back in, or advisors have never seen it or anything like that. So they emailed me asking like, "What do you think of this? The advisor's never seen it. Can you tell me, what this would look like?" And my honest answer was, I have no clue because I've never seen it either. But I went into more of a philosophical discussion with them on perspective of like why they're actually in school and what I would suggest. And that's what I'm here to actually talk to you guys about. So the reason why I wanted to make it about perspective and the philosophy of why you're in school, especially for the kind of work that I do, because I'll be 100% honest. Like I've seen people that go to school for like a year, they drop out, but then they keep studying and they get jobs in the industry. Fact, it just happens. Okay, I've seen people who don't go to any school and still get a job in the industry, so that can happen too. I think that sometimes is maybe a little bit harder because you don't always know how to filter out information that you're getting, whether it's like sound information or not. Even though I know professors go through a lot of like scrutiny that, hey, they're not up to industry standards or they're behind, those kind of things. And I would totally agree that it's very hard to try to be a professor and stay up with industry standards. I'm actually called a professor of practice. I worked in the game industry for 7 years, and then I went and got my MFA and I started teaching. I originally wasn't even planning on teaching. I was actually going to go into some other industry areas, but decided that I was going to teach just because of family situations and stuff like that. And I ended up quite liking it. I actually find it's actually harder. It's a harder life, but I'm digressing. So, um, there's a lot of people that think that like professors are behind. They may be, but the point is that usually you can get a good firm foundation and a direction if you go to school. That's why I've seen people, like I said, they'll go to school for like a year and then they'll quit, and then they'll just, they can just study on their own and they can figure it out, but they got some kind of like foundation and direction before they did that. So why are you in school? Like that's the main topic here. Um, the reason why you're really in school is to get mastery of some subject, right? And just getting a degree does not necessarily mean you have mastery in a subject. I'll be fully forthcoming with that because I know that there are times that I see people that aren't masters, they still get a degree, but that doesn't matter what happens with other people, it's what happens with you. That's what's important. What happens with you? And while you're in school, you have a certain set of time that you're allotted to study a certain subject. And it doesn't matter what subject it is. I mean, in my case, it's visual effects and animation and games, but in any other case, like you have this time to study this. So you may have other things that you have to do. You may have like general education classes that you have to take. That's usually always a part of any accredited school. But your job really while you're at school is to get mastery in the subject area that you are taking classes in. So, what does that mean? Somebody leaves the major and then they decide, I don't like this other major and I want to come back. What do they do? Okay, so you come back. Well, my suggestion was maybe you just go to an extra year of school or half a year of school to make sure that when you finish out correctly. And so I'm going to throw some numbers up at you, and I'll tell you just from experience, um, in how I got into the industry, just the background. I graduated in 2007 from my undergrad, and within 3 months or maybe 2.5 months, I was working at a AAA studio in games. Um, it's kind of a sweetheart story. It doesn't happen to everybody. the same day that I started at it was at Midway Games in Chicago, the same day I started, there was another guy who graduated from the same school as me, but 2 years earlier, and he started in the same position that I was in. So what he did was he worked. He couldn't get a job in the game industry yet, but he was working in an adjacent field, doing like graphics and stuff. And he kept working on his portfolio. So I applaud that because sometimes you just didn't get enough time under your belt and enough work under your belt to actually get in. But if you're really going for it, you keep working at it. So here's the point. Here's the numbers, right? And I'm going to go with a adage of 10,000 hours to become a master. So that's an old adage that they say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master, right? Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I think it maybe depends on what you're doing because some things might take less time and some things might take more. Who knows? I know my field, there's a lot to learn. It's not only are you learning like good art and good, good aesthetics, you also have to learn like how to bring that into a technical format and make it effective. And so it's almost like if you were just a painter, and you just had to learn your brushes and I'm not saying that's not hard to do, but it's less technical in the sense of um it's like we're trying to make a painting, if you will, but now in the computer, and there's all these barriers, and so we have to learn how to do that as well. So that's not easy, so it takes a lot of time. um 10,000 hours, right? Okay, so if you take, normally most schools 4 years, so in 4 years, and we'll say you take 1 month off. I'm not giving you 3 months and then a month over Christmas break. I'm giving you 1 month off because you still need to keep working on your work. 1 month off, and let's say, so that's 326 days roughly. At 4 years, that's 1,304 days of work. Okay, if you do 8 hours a day, that comes out to be 10,432 hours. So if you were to spend 8 hours of your craft for that many days, 1,304 days, then you would have over 10,000 hours. Okay. Maybe you'd be have some mastery in the realm that you're studying. Okay. Now, if you go ahead and take, the 1,304 days, you multiply that by 24 hours, you come up with 31,296 hours that you have. So that is exactly one third, or I should say 10,432 hours is exactly one third. All right. So in an ideal world, if you put that kind of work in, and you worked on your stuff over the summer, you worked on your stuff over Christmas break, you could have that 10,000 hours in the 4 years that you went to college. But reality, okay, we know that that may not always happen. However, I will say from my own personal experience and the students that I've worked with I'm in academia about 11, almost 12 years now. So all the students, actually it's longer, sorry, it's longer, but it's like 13 years I've been in academia, but I was also working full time as a game artist while I was in academia. But anyway, so when I was going to school, this is the point I'm trying to get to. When I was going to school, and all the people that I've seen do well under my instruction are the people that put a massive amount of time in. I don't know if there's any other secret. Like, yes, it helps to be talented. I was an artist in drawing since I was like 3 years old, so I was always like into art. I took art classes in school and stuff like that, so that gave me maybe a boost when I got into an actual like art school. I went to the Illinois Institute of Art in Schaumburg, which was, it's one of the AI schools that closed down, and everybody would, complain about those schools, how terrible they were. But as bad as maybe people thought they were, me and the other people that were putting in the work that I was putting in, we all got jobs in the industry. I know, I'm still friends with them. We still talk all the time, and they're all working in industry jobs. They've had a long career. So I guess my point that I'm trying to make is there's no secret magic other than putting in the time. Now, if you say, okay, maybe you can't do, a full 8 hours, I was probably doing 30 to 40 hours a week on my projects every week when I was going to school. And I did well in my other classes too, because I just thought it was important to try to do as well as I could on everything. But so 30 to 40 hours a week, you break that down, let's say it's 30, let's go on the lower side, yeah, I didn't put in a full 10,000 hours, but it was enough. It was enough. Now, the other thing is, I went to a school where we had quarters. And so, usually between quarters, you got like 2 weeks off. Maybe it was a little bit longer in the summer, shorter in the fall or something like that. But it was a quarter system, so you didn't have all this time off. You were basically going year round. And that's why when I was giving this time that you're working on stuff versus time off, I'm saying I'm only giving you 1 month off a year. Like, you still have to keep working to get those hours in, and you also don't want to not remember what you were doing. If you're at like a major university like I am, and I'm teaching up until like mid-May, and you stop at mid-May, and then you go the whole entire summer, and you don't touch anything that you learned. You come back in the fall, you are going to be so rusty. You are going to have forgotten stuff. You are not going to be getting better at your craft. During those summer times, even if you go and get a job or you take a vacation or whatever, you should probably still try to spend a couple hours a day, maybe more if you can, but spending time learning and bolstering your abilities no matter what. And that is how, in my opinion, most people, I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, but most people, and the people that I've seen that do that, they get jobs. They get jobs in the industry. And right now it's tough. I understand, like, there's a the industry is rough right now. There's a lot of shakeup with AI and stuff like that. I get it. Some people hate it. Some people are like embracing it. The reality is, it's probably going to be used in some way, one way or another. So, I would say, use it strategically, and don't lose your your soul and your art and stuff like that. But I don't want to say that it's like bad for everything. But anyway, the point is, though, is that shakeup has made this industry weird right now, I think, but it could come back. It ebbs and flows, man. I've been, when I was at my first company, Midway, I got laid off when they went bankrupt and WB bought them out. But then my next job, I made it through like 5 years, 5, 6 years without getting laid off. But there were layoffs at my company, and that's just reality. You gotta be nimble and light, and learn how to pivot and stuff like that. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. At the end of the day, the email that was sent, I basically said, look, for me, this is what I did. My last 2 semesters at school, actually they were quarters, like I said, they were quarters, not semesters. My last 2 quarters, I actually took an extra quarter to split my 2 quarters amount of work, because that's when we had our portfolio classes. That way I could spend a majority of my time on my portfolio, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get you an interview. You're not going to get an interview because you went to whatever school or whatever. I mean, it may help. It may not, it's not going to hurt that you finished school and got a degree. It's not going to hurt. But it's ultimately, they're going to look at your portfolio. They're probably going to give you an art test. They're going to interview you, because really they hire people. They don't hire, you know, artwork. They hire people, but they hire people that they feel like they can work with, that have good work. So that's my 2 cents. It's more important to take your time and do it right than to try to speed through and just get a degree. It's not going to be the biggest thing at the end of the day. So if you need to take an extra semester, an extra year, whatever, I would say try to do it if you can. I know there's a lot of ins and outs about funding and student loans and all that other stuff. But again, at the end of the day, it's important. But if you take the time while you're at school and you actually put a lot of the work in, I have seen this time and time again. Those people get jobs. They get jobs. It's not a perfect world. There can still be layoffs. There can still be struggles and stuff like that. But take the time while you're there, because that's exactly what it's there for. If you're out and all you're doing is partying, which, by the way, is all I did the first time I went to school. I actually had to drop out and learn some life lessons, and I came back. And then when I came back strong. I had my spiritual alignment, at that point. Like, I was like, I know I want to be an artist. I know I don't want to work in dead end jobs. I got right with God. It was a spiritual alignment, and I was like, I'm gonna, do this, and I was on fire. I was very laser focused, and I just got it done, and I put a ton of work in, and that was my secret sauce. And I, hopefully, for anybody who's watching this, that's like wondering, should I go to school? What's the point? Blah blah blah. The point is to get you there faster, so that basically the experience of learning is curated. I mean, if we're talking about the animation game VFX thing, it's also context. There's a lot of things that go into it, that you can get benefits from going to a school, but it's a lot about curation, right? It's about, you're not going on YouTube and finding a thousand different ways to model something. You're finding like, hey, I just found out one way to do it. I go forward, and then maybe later, motorcycle riding by, maybe later, you find a different way to do it. That's fine, but it doesn't mean you have to learn everything at once and get confused about what's the right way. You're trying to, you do want to know what the right way is, obviously, and not everyone's perfect. Not every teacher's perfect, but you're just trying to move forward and make an awesome portfolio. Okay, so I've rambled on for quite a bit and got a meeting coming up, and so I will let this one go. But I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about why you're in school and what you should be doing with your time. All right, everybody. Bye.